Have you ever felt like the more you think deeply, the more disconnected you become? That the more you try to understand the world, the more distant people seem. This isn't just in your head. Society has always feared those who think deeply, not because they are wrong, but because they see truths that others would rather ignore. Throughout history, figures like Socrates, Galileo, and even more recent pioneers like Nikola Tesla have faced ridicule, dismissal, or even silencing, not because of a lack of intelligence, but because their insights made people uncomfortable. Why is it that deep thinkers often face such isolation? Why does society push them away instead of embracing their understanding of the world? To answer this, we have to dive into the depths of human psychology. Consider this. When you are next to someone who is physically stronger, you don't feel less than. You admire their strength, you recognize their physical superiority, and often you may even feel motivated. When you meet someone wealthier, you might envy them, but you don't necessarily feel threatened. But when you encounter someone who is intellectually superior, something strange happens. Psychologists refer to this as the mirror effect. A deep thinker doesn't just present new ideas, they hold a mirror up to society's limitations, revealing the things we prefer to overlook. And the truth is, people don't like seeing their own limitations reflected back at them. The mere presence of someone who thinks more deeply can make others feel small or inadequate, even if the person has said nothing at all. But why does this happen? Why does intelligence provoke such a strong reaction? Why does it challenge us in a way that wealth or strength simply doesn't? To understand this, let's explore how our minds perceive different kinds of superiority. When we encounter someone with physical strength, we might view them as a protector, someone who can defend us. When we meet someone wealthy, we might admire their success and want to learn how they achieved it. These qualities, strength, wealth, beauty, are external, visible. They don't necessarily challenge our inner sense of self, but intelligence is different. Intelligence is intimately tied to our identity. We define ourselves by our thoughts, our beliefs, our understanding of the world. When we meet someone who thinks deeply, someone who questions the very things we take for granted, it can feel like a direct attack on our sense of self. Instead of celebrating their intelligence, we might resist it because it forces us to confront the gaps in our own understanding. We don't just fear the deep thinker's knowledge, we fear the mirror they hold up to our own limitations. This is why deep thinkers have always been pushed to the fringes of society. Their insights don't merely challenge conventional ideas, they challenge our egos. And throughout history, society has shown that people will do almost anything to protect their ego from discomfort. Take a moment and reflect. Have you ever tried to introduce a deep or complex idea in a casual conversation, only to be met with blank stares or awkward silence? Or noticed how quickly people switch topics when conversations move past the surface? This isn't tea by chance. It's a defense mechanism. When people encounter someone who thinks more deeply, their brains shift into a state of self-preservation. Instead of engaging with curiosity, they resist. Instead of exploring the idea, they dismiss it. This is why philosophers, intellectuals, and visionaries often find themselves isolated, and not because they want to be alone, but because society pushes them away. Strangely, studies show that confidence is often more highly valued than intelligence in social settings. People are naturally drawn to those who exude certainty, even if their ideas are shallow or simplistic. Why? Because certainty feels comfortable. It offers clarity. It's predictable. Deep thinkers, on the other hand, challenge this status quo, and this often makes people uncomfortable. History is full of examples of figures who rose to fame because they told people what they wanted to hear. Populist leaders, motivational speakers, and viral influencers gained attention by offering simplistic solutions to complex problems. Meanwhile, those who question accepted norms often struggle to find a wide audience. This is the paradox of intelligence. The more someone seeks truth, the more they become disconnected from the majority. The mirror effect doesn't just reflect society's limitations. It shows us why society resists change in the first place. But the question still remains: if intelligence is so threatening, Is there any scientific proof that people actually fear it? As it turns out, neuroscience confirms this. Studies show that when people feel intellectually inferior, their brain's amygdala, responsible for fear and threat detection, becomes highly active. In simple terms, deep thinking is not just intimidating. It triggers a primal survival response, similar to the fear we feel when facing physical danger. But why does intelligence provoke the same fear response? The answer lies in human evolution. For most of history, survival didn't depend on being the smartest person in the room. It depended on social harmony. Early humans lived in tribes where the group survival depended on cohesion. Being cast out from the tribe could mean death. That's why even today, human brains are wired for social acceptance over intellectual pursuit. When someone highly intelligent enters a social setting, they disrupt the tribal balance. They challenge accepted beliefs, social norms, and group dynamics. This triggers a defense mechanism, as if facing a threat rather than just encountering a deep thinker. This is why deep thinkers often feel isolated, not because they lack social skills, but because their intelligence makes them stand out in a world that values fitting in more than standing out. A 2021 study at Stanford University uncovered something even more revealing. It turns out, deep thinkers are perceived differently, depending on the context. One-on-one people feel less threatened by intelligence. But in group settings, their defense mechanisms spike. Why? Because social status becomes more important in groups. People don't just react to intelligence. They react to how others perceive them in comparison. If someone feels overshadowed by a deep thinker, they instinctively try to undermine or exclude them in order to protect their social standing. This explains why intellectuals often find enriching conversations in private, but struggle in larger social settings. Psychologists have identified several cognitive biases that further explain why intelligence is often met with resistance. The Dunning-Kruger effect, where those with less ability overestimate their intelligence, while those who are highly intelligent tend to doubt themselves. Status quo bias, the brain's preference for familiar ideas over new complex truths. And the backfire effect. When people are confronted with new information, they often double down on their old beliefs rather than reconsidering them. Deep thinkers face this reaction when they challenge widely accepted beliefs. In the digital age, social media only amplifies these biases. Algorithms prioritize engagement over depth, meaning that simple, emotionally charged content spreads faster than thoughtful, nuanced arguments. Viral content is often shallow, catchy, and misleading, which makes it harder for deep thinkers to convey their complex ideas. Society, it seems, favors entertainment over enlightenment. So what does this mean for deep thinkers? The rejection of intelligence isn't just a social issue. It's biological, psychological, and cultural. It's built into human nature, reinforced by group dynamics, and magnified by modern technology. But this doesn't mean deep thinkers should stop sharing their insights. It does, however, mean they need to understand the forces working against them. But if society resists intelligence, what does it embrace? Comfort, predictability, a world where certainty reigns over truth. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most brutally honest philosophers in history, argued that intelligence is a curse. The smarter a person is, the more they will struggle to fit into society. But why? What makes intelligence such a burden? Schopenhauer believed that most people are controlled by the will to live, a desire for comfort and survival. But deep thinkers develop the will to truth, a relentless pursuit of understanding, even if it leads to discomfort. This is why deep thinkers often feel disillusioned by social norms, relationships, and the everyday pursuits that most people chase. Where others find meaning in material pursuits, deep thinkers often seek deeper existential truths. They crave meaning, but society craves comfort. As Schopenhauer understood that intelligence often leads to isolation, but he also offered solutions. Embrace solitude, not as a punishment but as a privilege. Use it to cultivate intellectual and creative pursuits. Find like-minded individuals who challenge and support your thinking. Engage wisely with the world, knowing when to share your ideas and when to hold them close. Ultimately, Schopenhauer saw intelligence as a double-edged sword. It grants clarity, freedom, and wisdom, but it also distances us from those who prefer illusion. Society may fear intelligence, but it is not because intelligence is wrong. It's because intelligence is right often, too soon. If you've ever felt alone in your thoughts, know this. You are not broken. You are simply seeing the world for what it truly is. And while the world may resist your insights, don't stop thinking deeply. The world needs your vision more than it knows.